has yet to be selected.
Posed one of the greatest cover-ups in human history.
A brutal massacre to silence.
The story begins with the passing of the Pope, the pontiff who stands as God's highest authority on earth. His death leads to the destruction of the fisherman's ring bearing the papal seal, a symbolic act that must be carried out shortly after his passing. The papal apartment is sealed off for a 9-day mourning period known as the sede vacant, a time when the throne remains empty. During these days, Catholic leaders from around the world gather in Rome, shaken by the sudden death of this progressive and beloved pope. In St. Peter's Square, the faithful raise their prayers, hoping a new leader will rise, someone who can unite a church deeply shaken by recent changes. As the pope's body is moved, the prayers of the preferiti, the favorites to succeed, echo through the air. By late morning, the College of Cardinals locks itself inside the Sistine Chapel to begin the conclave, the ancient and sacred process of selecting a new pontiff. Meanwhile, in Switzerland at the European Organization for Nuclear Research, a high-stakes experiment is underway in the Hadron Collider. The goal: generate antimatter. Father Sano Bentivoglio supervises the procedure, though some scientists are wary. As the particles collide at near light speed, they successfully create antimatter, stored in 3 vials, surpassing all prior amounts. Dr. Victoria communicates the breakthrough to Father Sano, who solemnly says they are now in God's hands. Moments later, Victoria discovers blood at the lab entrance, followed by a gruesome sight, an eyeball. She soon finds Father Silvano's lifeless body, his eye removed, likely used to bypass the lab's security. 1 vial of antimatter has been stolen. At Harvard University, symbologist Robert Langdon is interrupted during a swim by Claudio Vincenzi of the Swiss Guard. Robert recognizes the Vatican seal on his case. Claudio shows Robert an ambigram, Illuminati, a word that reads the same backward and forward. Robert explains it was believed to be created in tribute to Galileo and represents a long-lost secret society of scientists and truth-seekers. He notes he's written a book on them but was denied access to the Vatican archives for deeper research. Claudio reveals that 4 cardinals have been kidnapped following the Pope's death, and a message was delivered threatening to execute one every hour starting that night. The Vatican, citing health reasons, postponed the conclave to avoid raising suspicion. Claudio insists Robert is needed to help identify the enemy and prevent the attack. Robert is flown to Rome where he joins Vatican officials. Inside the Sistine Chapel, he comments on historical church acts like the castration of statues under Pope Pius IX. Commander Richter of the Swiss Guard, a devout man and friend of the late Pope, reminds Robert to be respectful. Robert clarifies he studies symbols not to mock but to understand and serve. Victoria arrives and explains the details of the stolen antimatter. It's suspended within a cylinder by electromagnets. If the battery fails and the antimatter touches matter, it would cause a catastrophic explosion, equivalent to a 5-kiloton bomb. Midnight is the estimated time of failure. The kidnapper's video message plays. He vows to destroy the 4 pillars, brand and sacrifice chosen ones at the altars of science, and engulf Vatican City in light, symbolic of the Illuminati's vengeance. Robert explains the 4 pillars are air, earth, fire, and water, referencing the Illuminati's ambigram brands. He believes the murders will take place at churches aligned with these elements. He proposes following the path of illumination, a secret trail marked by clues Galileo embedded in his writings. To pursue this path, Robert needs access to the Vatican archives. Though he's been denied previously, the Camerlengo, the temporary papal authority during the sede vacant, may grant it. Camerlengo Patrick hears Robert out. They speak privately in the Holy Father's office. The Camerlengo asks Robert if he believes in God. Robert replies that while his mind may never grasp God, his heart tells him faith is a gift he hasn't received. Moved, the Camerlengo grants access to the archives. Meanwhile, the Camerlengo urges Cardinal Strauss to consider evacuating Vatican City. Strauss refuses, fearing that would play into the enemy's desire for panic and publicity. He opts to proceed with the conclave. In the archives, Robert, Victoria, and Chartrand search for clues. Oxygen is low, so time is limited. Victoria explains that 1 antimatter particle can power a city for a month, or destroy it. They're searching for a book by Galileo, who was both Catholic and a secret Illuminatus. He believed science and religion spoke the same truth. Galileo allegedly created a coded path that led to the Church of Illumination. 4 public statues in Rome, each representing one of the 4 elements, point the way. The statues, placed in churches, are known as the altars of science. The Illuminati would carry out sacrifices at each of these. The race to find the first church before the killings begin is now underway. They then access Galileo's files. Meanwhile, a man is seen receiving a transfer to an account in the Isle of Man. He is the kidnapper of the 3 cardinals. One of them mentions that the conclave continues without their presence, but the criminal shows no sign of compassion and begins to prepare a red-hot iron rod with the word Earth. Victoria asks Robert about the Sino found among Galileo's files. Robert replies that it's the number 5003, a number he has often seen in the Illuminati's letters, where answers are written in the margins. They often just sign with the number 5003. It's a numerical clue. The number 5 is significant for the Illuminati, tied to the pentagram, Pythagoras, and many examples in science. But the 3 confuses him, until he realizes it might mean D3, or Galileo's third text, Diagram of the Truth. Victoria comments that she is familiar with dialogue and discourse, but not with diagram. Robert explains that in this third book, Galileo presents his theory that the Earth revolves around the Sun, not the center of the universe as the Church claimed. Galileo had been forced to retract his statements in earlier books, but in Diagram of the Truth, he revealed everything. This forbidden text had been printed in Holland on papyrus, so any scientist who owned a copy could dissolve it in water if needed. Assuming this is the last existing copy, Robert and Victoria search page 5. With her help, they read the Latin text, but a watermark reveals a clue written in English. Realizing they're out of time, Victoria tears out the page and they flee. In the car, they try to figure out the first destination. The clue points to Raphael's tomb, located in the oldest church in Rome. Though this irritates the agents, they pretend to be a couple and enter. Inside, Robert points out the oculus, possibly the Devil's Hole. Victoria asks why the tombs are oriented eastward. Robert explains it's to honor the sun, and that new religions often adopt pagan customs, like December 25th, which was a sun festival long before becoming the birth of Christ. As they continue, they realize the tomb is a replica from 1759. They suspect the real clue lies in the Chigi Chapel inside Santa Maria del Popolo, known as the Chapel of the Earth. Since Earth is the first element, Commander Richter is furious about his mistake and orders his men to pull back. However, Inspector Ernesto decides to help. When they arrive, the bells start ringing. It's already evening. They race through the church and into the chapel. Robert notices a strange hole in the floor, the Devil's Hole, and descends. There, they find one of the cardinals dead, with the word Earth carved into his chest. Meanwhile, the conclave starts. To delay a final decision, the cardinals vote for themselves. The black smoke rises, signaling no pope has been chosen yet. At the crime scene, police cordon off the area. Robert and Victoria keep investigating and suspect Bernini could be the mastermind. Robert climbs up and examines St. Peter's Square. Although the church wasn't built by Bernini, the square was a clue, perhaps. The square is packed with people. Robert heads to the obelisk. On the ground, he finds an inscription, West Wind. At that moment, the bells ring again. In the chaos, a little girl picks up her doll. It's bloody. Another cardinal is found with air carved into his chest and lung damage. The killer is among the crowd. A note is found with the body. Robert, changing clothes, reads a letter revealing the Pope was murdered by medication overdose. But autopsies are banned during a papacy. The Camerlengo confirms the Pope was on tincerine. Victoria explains that in large doses, it causes internal bleeding and stroke. Though it may appear as a heart attack, within days, signs would appear. The letter mentions that the sun will blind them at midnight, and that neither the police nor professors can stop it. Robert realizes the Illuminati know he's in the Vatican. With few options, they return to the archives, seeking the element of fire. Victoria suggests Silvano's diaries may contain the killer's name. Robert and Chartrand search the Vatican archives. St. Peter's Square is evacuated, though the press remains unaware. More black smoke, still no pope. In the archives, Robert looks for fire-related art. He and Chartrand discuss the church's influence. Robert says it also acts like a bank. They enter the church's vault. Meanwhile, in Patrick's office, he asks Victoria what signs would show from a tinserine overdose. She explains symptoms like blackening in the mouth due to coagulated blood. Patrick confesses the Pope raised him after he was orphaned in an anti-Catholic bombing. The Pope adopted him, and Patrick grew up in the church. Patrick became both a priest and an Air Force pilot. He often flew wounded soldiers during wars. While Robert and Chartrand remain trapped in the archives, running low on oxygen, Robert smashes the glass. He collapses, but the oxygen flows in just in time. In the Vatican crypts, Patrick and Victoria find the Pope's body. It shows signs of poisoning, confirming murder. Someone inside the Vatican is involved. Robert now believes the next element, fire, is tied to Santa Maria della Vittoria. En route, Ernesto wonders if the Illuminati have infiltrated the Swiss Guard. Back in Patrick's office, Victoria notices Silvano's diaries are missing. Patrick bursts into the conclave, shocking the cardinals. He claims the Pope was murdered, the Church is under attack, and the Illuminati seek revenge using science. He argues for transparency, to tear down the walls and let the world see that faith and science can coexist. Meanwhile, Robert, Ernesto, and Vincenzi arrive at the church where Cardinal Guidera is suspended over burning wood. A shootout ensues. The cardinal dies, as do the two officers. Langdon escapes, the killer sees him. Back at the conclave, Cardinal Strauss tells Patrick that the conclave will continue. Strauss is told that with the 4 preferiti gone, no candidate can win unless he steps down as elector. He agrees, if it is God's will. Firefighters extinguish the fire. Beneath the church, Robert is found alive. Commander Richter is reviewing Silvano's diaries. Victoria confronts him. He claims the documents are now Vatican evidence. Robert, meanwhile, heads to the next site, the Fountain of the Four Rivers. The killer appears, kills officers, and throws Cardinal Baggia into the fountain. Robert saves him, and Baggia reveals the Illuminati's lair, Castel Sant'Angelo. Robert and Victoria discover a hidden passage from the castle into the Vatican, the killer's hideout. Inside, they find a chest with 5 branding irons. The final mark is for the Pope. But before they can act, the killer returns. He spares their lives, warning them to beware. His employers are men of God. He escapes in a car, but it explodes upon ignition. Back in the Vatican, Richter attacks Patrick, branding him. The guards shoot Richter and the Archbishop. Richter dies, but gives Langdon a key. They find the antimatter in St. Peter's tomb, but the battery is nearly dead. Patrick, a trained pilot, flies a helicopter high over the city, carrying the antimatter. He parachutes just before it explodes. He's hailed as a hero. The cardinals consider making him Pope. But Robert and Victoria use the key to access a video, a recording of Patrick orchestrating the entire plan. He murdered the Pope, his adoptive father, believing he had betrayed the church by embracing science. Patrick planned to use fear of the Illuminati to unite conservatives and declare himself Pope. Exposed, he commits suicide by self-immolation. The Vatican announces he died from injuries during the landing and even proposes his canonization. Cardinal Baggia, the only surviving preferiti, becomes Pope Lucas I. He names Strauss as Camerlengo. Strauss thanks Robert, gives him Galileo's book, and asks him to treat the church with care in future publications. Robert replies, "I'll try." Pope Lucas I blesses the crowd in St. Peter's Square, and the story ends. The moral message of this movie is, true faith and scientific truth do not have to be enemies. When guided by humility, both can coexist to serve humanity. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and see you in the next video.